Supervising sound editor Brian Armstrong was an Emmy nominee for Westworld and Deadwood the movie. Other projects have included The Walking Dead and The Right Stuff, and his latest project is the FX series Shogun. Uh, Brian, it's an incredible show, and I know it placed a huge priority on this authenticity to the era, obviously. And I guess I just want to start like, how does that impact your work on the sound when there's probably not anything. I guess there's not a lot of recordings, certainly from 17th century feudal Japan. So like, how does that help, or how does that kind of impact your work?
Yeah, we were shocked with how little recordings exist from that period. It was definitely a challenge. I mean, because that's what Justin Marks and Rachel Kondo wanted. Above all else was authenticity. So we worked with we had got in touch with a couple sound designers in Japan just to kind of ask for some nature recordings, not necessarily to use because it's really hard to find recordings that don't have modern Japanese in it or some sort of modern technology, cars, planes, all that kind of stuff. So it was more to get nature recordings that we can then sort of source. The crickets, make sure they sound like this, and it sounds funny, but crickets sound different. Frogs, definitely different. So we had great source recordings for that, and then because there is a lack of technology in our show, we relied a lot on nature. Jim Gallivan, the sound designer, found a collection of scientific recordings of birds of Japan. Each track had information on the type of bird, location, time of year. He researched the migration patterns of the birds, and so it was really kind of sort of a signpost of where we are throughout the show.
That's amazing. And are you also able to use the original novel too at all? And like, is there any like, did you go back and look at that? Like, are there descriptions or anything in there that also help or no?
Not so much. We kind of let the story in front of us dictate it. Um, it so closely resembled it,
Right.
the story. So like also with Foley, Foley did an incredible job of getting authentic tatami mats, the slippers, and the kimonos, everything that we see. They went through great extremes to make sure they found authentic props. Jim and I also went up to set and we got to record some stuff around set. A lot of the doors, pretty much, I think every single door you hear in the show, we recorded there on
Wow.
set. Um, and just sort of background knockabout stuff that we were able to get our hands on.
And then how about in terms of like with the actors and their dialogue, I guess a little like is was it a challenge at all or like because one of the things I know about the show is that like every show a lot of the characters have very few words so that were very impactful things that they're saying and also are not raising their like Blackthorn obviously is very loud and gruff as the Englishman coming in, but everybody else is very soft spoken or again like not as aggressive as Blackthorn, at least in outwardly so. And I guess was that it when you have scenes where he is like raging versus like Mariko quietly repeating what he is saying, I guess does that present a challenge?
Absolutely, absolutely. Mariko was very soft spoken, very not unemotional, but
Right.
not as heightened as the buffoon that is Blackthorn. Um, and other characters like Kiku and Gin, who like just barely had audible words, and it's just so delicate and soft and so stylized. It was really, really important that we capture all of that. John Creed did an incredible job, going in and cleaning everything up as much as possible. But it definitely was a challenge because even though the show, like every line had been considered, written originally in English, translated to Japanese, sent to a Japanese playwright to sort of put a period spin on it and just sort of add the poetry to it, and then translated back to English for the subtitles. And then even at that point, there was still some going back and forth of like, oh well, maybe this would be more eloquent if it came across like this in English than the subtitles. Um, every nuance, like down to what character is talking to what character as far as rank goes in the time is different. A samurai talking to another samurai is different from a samurai talking to the Lord. So all of that was under such scrutiny. Hiroyuki Sanada and Eriko Miyagawa Hiro, obviously, who plays Toranaga, were both at every single ADR session where
Hmm.
Japanese was spoken. They were at every single group session to sort of have oversight on, making sure the villagers weren't saying anything that they weren't supposed to, if they even said anything at all. That was really a big lesson for me, is like pulling back and having that restraint of like, even though we're in a village and, historically every TV show that we do, if you're in a city, you have call outs, and to be able to be challenged and be okay with that quiet and rely on other sounds was a really great lesson for us all.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it makes the show like we said, like it's so authentic, and I think that comes across like when you're watching it as a viewer, just that like subtleties of the all the things you're talking about. I want to talk a little about in the fifth episode. It ends obviously with the giant earthquake, I believe, right? That's in episode five. Just incredible, incredible sequence. Like again, like kind of out of nowhere if you haven't read the book or are not familiar with the story. So it's like great, uh, just an incredible set piece. And I guess like basically, where'd you start on that to like make it again, like thinking of how's that's going to sound in that time and like to make it sound like it does. And like I think obviously it's such a great sequence overall.
Thank you. Yeah, I think sort of the authenticity lent itself to other things beyond just the culture. I've been through my fair share of earthquakes here in Los Angeles, and it's quiet, and that's what's scary about it. And so when we went out to approach the earthquake, we wanted to have that unease, that like addition by subtraction, as it's
Mm-hmm.
called. We stripped all of the nature sounds and we're just left with wind. Even the music goes away just before that earthquake starts, and it does kind of give this uneasy sense, and the very first thing you hear is this flock of birds that comes up, because nature has a way of knowing before we do what's about to come. And before the rumble even starts, you hear the rocks sort of rattling on the ground. And then it just, becomes insane. The landslide is really what kind of gives the sound to it. And just the
Mm-hmm.
specificity of the branches snapping, the trees falling. It's one of those insane times when the visual effects come in, after we had built it. And aside from, specific things that we saw after, it was just like, this marriage of two incredible, designs. The visuals are stunning. It took my breath away the first time I saw it.
I
Still
mean,
does.
yeah, it looks real, right? It's just it looks like
Yeah.
legitimately real. Does a sequence like that you have to like? I mean, does that take forever to you guys to do, or like do you have more time to do that compared to other things in the episodes, or you just kind of like have to just get it in the certain amount of time that you have?
Yes. all of the above. All of
Okay.
the above. Yeah, we didn't get any extra time for it, but you kind of choose where to put your focus. And fortunately, um, 80 to 90% of Shogun is character building and talking, and plot happens through dialogue, which is really fantastic. And so what's nice about that is not only is it, I don't know, just a great way, in my opinion, to tell a story, but it really lets those big moments shine. And each episode sort of has one big moment, whether it's
Hmm.
the cannons at the end of four, or the earthquake in five. There's plenty of opportunities for sound to sort of step up and be larger than life. So
Was that like? I guess what was for you then? What was the biggest challenge? Was it like that? Was it like kind of calibrating that to know that you have all that, or do you like that having the dialogue like drive so much of the story, like you're saying, and like kind of the action?
my focus tends to be more on the dialogue side. Historically, I've done more dialogue, so it's definitely where uh, what hits me first. So in that sense, it really was great. It really was an awesome opportunity to take the great production recordings from set, and you know, as great as they can be for a ship that's literally held 50 feet above the ground, getting actual bucket loads from tractors, of water getting dumped onto it. We got to use most of that stuff. Um,
Yeah,
it is really a cool. It was a
definitely.
cool experience.
Yeah, and I guess like, there's more seasons to come. I know that's a very new nascent thing, but I mean, sounds like you would probably want to go back or do more in the future, I guess.
I'm in for as long as they want to bring me in. Our My secret heart tells me I want to do it. So
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Brian Armstrong, supervising sound editor for Shogun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you.